climate impacts rather than simply listing impacts across sectors related to climate change. And we did this risk analysis to really make this impacts assessment more actionable. So we can use the highest risk areas in our impacts assessment to inform adaptation actions in our climate action plan. So next slide, please. There we are. So in brief, this is not new information. As with past impacts assessments, we project that Pennsylvania will get warmer and wetter. Cities will see increased prevalence of extreme heat events, and extreme precipitation events will also become more prevalent. Next slide. I just wanted to show here the matrix of our risk assessment results, and these are the results for the year 2050. Down the rows, we have our climate hazards listed there, and those are increasing average temperatures, heavy precipitation and inland floods, heat waves, landslides, sea level rise, and severe tropical and extratropical cyclones. And across the top, we have our consequence categories. So these are the categories that we analyze the consequences for each of these climate hazards. And we really wanted to take an intentional look at climate change consequences to human health and EJ and equity. We also looked at agriculture, recreation and tourism, energy and other economic activities, our forest ecosystems, wildlife, built infrastructure. So it's color-coded from yellow to red to show the severity of these risks across these different sectors. And this is really what helps us identify where we need to prioritize action for our adaptation in the climate action plan. Next slide. Great, so the climate action plan, this year, we updated our business as usual emission scenarios, and we actually outlined a pathway rather than just listing strategies to reduce emissions. We again wanted to make this actionable, so we outlined a pathway to reaching our greenhouse gas reduction goals for the state, which are a 26% reduction by 2025 and an 80% reduction by 2050, and those are from 2005 levels. We have some quantitative analysis of those greenhouse gas reductions and economic costs and benefits. And we also have some qualitative discussion of co-benefits of taking these actions. We discussed a little bit of enabling technologies, and we have a whole section on adaptation actions, which are truly informed by those high risk, high vulnerable areas identified in the climate impacts assessment. And again, we took an intentional look at equity throughout this document. Next slide. So we broke this out in the actual report. It's organized by sector, but we identify short-term versus mid-term versus long-term for implementation of these different strategies. So I've rearranged the strategies in this presentation for, for those short-term versus mid-term versus long-term categories. And these are really the strategies that we've identified that we can implement within 5 years realistically. Based on the analysis that our contractors did. And these include updating building codes, commercial and residential energy efficiency, distributed on-site solar, industrial energy efficiency, agricultural energy efficiency. Energy efficiency is really a huge, huge strategy for reducing greenhouse gas emissions across all sectors. And keeping nuclear energy generation a zero carbon electricity generation at current levels, which I understand nuclear is a bit of a hot button topic as well. Next slide, please. And I'm not going to read through each and every one of these strategies, but these are the ones that we identified as being implementable within 10 years, realistically. And again, there's a lot of energy efficiency, fuel efficiency, building electrification is a big one too that can help us meet our greenhouse gas reduction goals, building electrification and transportation electrification. Now, of course, these electrification strategies need to be paired with cleaning up our grid, our electric grid. We have, I think on the next slide is the big one, but yeah, there we go. So that last bullet there, establish a carbon emissions free grid, is really where we make the biggest dent based on the analysis in this report towards meeting our greenhouse gas reduction goals. So, and while I didn't explicitly call out here in this presentation which strategies are really geared towards local governments and municipalities, our climate action plan, the detailed analysis in the report, does indicate how municipalities and local governments can start to implement some of these actions. Some of these strategies are going to require legislative action to implement. Some of them are going to require state regulation. And some of them are going to require local action on, some will require private business action on. But largely, these strategies will require partnerships between all of those actors to really implement successfully. So if we go to the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about the adaptation planning in our climate action plan. So climate change is happening. We are already experiencing the impacts. So it is very important that along with taking action to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, we're also planning and implementing strategies to mitigate those impacts. And we identified from our climate impacts assessment the most vulnerable and priority areas to start doing this adaptation planning, and those are listed here. And I will have just one example, one quick example of one of these priority areas for adaptation. And some of these we did bundle together, like number 1 and 2 here, impacts of increasing average temperatures and heat wave on health. We bundled together with the number 2, impacts of flooding and storms on health. So our adaptation pathway is to address both of those things. So next slide, please. So this figure, we have one of these for each priority area identified in the impacts assessment, and these are a little difficult to really wrap your head around without spending some time with it. So hopefully I can explain it well enough during this meeting to give you what you need to go look in the plan and understand the rest of them. So the example I want to use here is the adaptation strategy pathway for reducing hazard impacts of high temperatures and floods on overburdened and vulnerable populations. Remember I said we really took we really wanted to look at this through an equity and environmental justice lens. So our impact assessment identified overburdened and vulnerable populations as one of the highest at risk to these climate hazards. So I'm going to have to blow this up so I can see it. So we list 4 examples, and these are just examples. These are not the only, it's not the end all be all of adaptation for vulnerable communities. But across the top there in the gray boxes, we list some example foundational actions to understand and prepare to address these impacts and vulnerabilities. And then we show some approaches to reduce vulnerabilities and manage those impacts. Light blue, kind of, the light blue boxes kind of show the genre of approach, and those dark blue boxes give an example of what that looks like in action for vulnerabilities to flooding and for temperature. That's what the small F's and small T's are there in the dark blue boxes. So then I'm going to drill down into one of these strategies, one of these approaches in the next slide. So here we're going to look specifically at one of the foundational strategy types and a couple approaches. So this just takes one of those gray boxes and goes into deeper detail about how this strategy can be implemented. So here we're looking at establishing metrics and key actors and responsibilities for tracking the equity of impacts and solutions. We give an example of how you can implement this strategy. So here we say you can track data on extreme heat and flood hazards and equity, make it available to the public, and use that to prioritize, use that data to prioritize actions. And we also give some examples of who the actors are, who will be doing these actions. And then our approaches, we give some examples of, the same thing under those approaches. We give some examples of who the actors could be, and also the timing of how you would do these things. So for the approach of developing and maintaining a database, we say, that our actors would be researchers, scientists, and community organizations, and we can begin that as soon as possible. So we kind of just kind of step through those foundational strategies and associated approaches, and just give examples about how they could be implemented. So now I'm going to give an example of what this might look like in action with a case study from Philadelphia. Next slide. So this community-driven approach to tackling heat in Philadelphia is a really great example of the the foundational strategy and approaches that I attempted to explain in the last slide. So Philadelphia developed this, the Philadelphia Office of Sustainability, excuse me, and Department of Public Health developed this Philadelphia Heat Vulnerability Index. So they collected the data, they analyzed the data, they put it in this fantastic mapping tool, and they can now use this data to identify where there are high surface temperature data that coincides with environmental justice areas in the city. And they can use this to target programs towards those communities, those most vulnerable communities who are also most impacted. So I have some links to Philadelphia's website with some great reports on this, and also the heat index map. So if you're not familiar with that, please check it out. It's a very cool tool and an excellent example of putting into action a strategy to adapt to climate change. I think I'm probably pretty close to the end of the time I am allotted. So the last several slides, I'm not gonna go through them here today. I just like to append these slides. Maybe we can just show the next slide here. There you go. So I just appended several slides here that list out some efforts that are already going on in Pennsylvania regarding energy and climate efforts. And there are links in these slides as well. And some of these are planning efforts. Some are legislation. Some are regulatory efforts, and some are funding opportunities for deploying, excuse me, got a dog here, for deploying clean energy transportation. So I hope you will take a look at that. And I will turn it back over. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions that people want to pose audibly or by chat? Thank you all for entering the information about your EACs. If anything comes to you and you want to pose a question, just put it in the chat. If not, I want to thank you for updating us on the state activities. I know that many of the participating EACs and townships have availed themselves of some of the grant programs that you featured there. And anyone else who hasn't, I would encourage you to look into the grant programs that are available for such things as green vehicles, electric vehicles, charging infrastructure, developing climate action plans, et cetera, et cetera. So, and we will share links afterward with everyone about to those program web pages. Aurora is going to post up the first of our poll questions. And if you would take a moment to answer. So this is basically a question about what is your EAC's and your township's stage of thinking about climate action planning, energy transition planning, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so I think you can all see.
Yep, we have about 50% people answered so far. Still some coming in.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna end it. It looks like everyone who wants to answer has answered. And I will share the results with you all.
So it looks like a lot of municipalities are have made commitments, are working on a plan. Those who are not, we hope you get inspired.
Okay, so is it still sharing? I think we're done.
Okay, we're
Oh, yeah.
done. Sorry about that. All right, so if you would queue up our next presentation and presenter. So I believe the next up is a presentation from Delaware County. Exciting developments in Delaware County is the fact that there is a sustainability commission. So those of us in Delaware County are very excited about that. And Sharon Jaye, the Sustainability and Resilience Manager, will present for the commission.
All right. Hello, everyone. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. Just double checking that. And I just realized on this very first slide, I misspelled my own email. So it's jayes@county.delaware.pa.us. So before we send that out to everybody with a PDF, we will fix my email so you can actually email me. Thank you for having me today. If we go to the next slide. So there is a culture shift going on in Delco. We created the Sustainability Commission about a year and a half ago with a resolution that was done by the County Council. They started meeting in October 2020. I actually just came on board a couple of months ago, so I'm actually new to this whole process. So some of this history is just for informational purposes. The commission is charged with providing reviews and recommendations to the county and county departments and the council regarding the preservation and protection of the natural and cultural environment of Delaware County. And if you've never seen the resolution, if you are in a county that does not have a sustainability office or a sustainability commission and would like to band together as EACs to try and do that, if there's a really great example of our resolution, or actually the actual resolution that we just updated a few weeks ago, is on our website. So you can go to that and actually use some of the same language if you wanted to use that to get something going on in your county. Our members, we have 17 members. They're split between government members and public members. So we have a certain amount of government spots, like the Director of Facilities or the Director of Parks and Rec. And then we have a certain amount of public members that are actually split, like a resident of Delaware County that has experience in energy efficiency, or something like that. So we have this big list of members with certain types of experience, or they live in a certain area of the county that we recruit to be on our commission. So our meetings are public. All of the recordings of the meetings, the presentations, the minutes, the agendas are available on our website. So you'll be able to go to our website later and look up all the information about what's going on with the commission. So next slide. So we also hired a chief sustainability officer. She started at the end of January. I started in July. So one of the interesting things that our executive director did in Delaware County was actually put 6 of our operational divisions under her purview. Her name's Francine Locke. She would love to hear from you if you have any questions, but you're welcome to reach out to either one of us. So one of the neat things is now that she is overseeing all of these operational divisions, the executive director thought that it would be a better organization to be able to make things happen in those divisions. So that's one of the neat things about how her position was organized. So what we're responsible for in the sustainability division that has all these operational departments, and then our Office of Sustainability, is greening our county operations, is the actual plan development of our sustainability and climate action plan, and then implementation of the programs that we outline in our sustainability and climate action plan. So next slide. So this is introducing, we now have an Office of Sustainability. Our draft vision is one where all people in Delaware County have access to quality, energy efficient, resilient infrastructure and community assets. And I'm going to not read the whole entire thing because this is actually our draft vision that our Sustainability Commission created, and it has lots of really good things in it. So if you don't have a vision or a mission that's outright stated for your Environmental Action Committee, you might think about actually going through the process of doing it. It might help you center and organize some of the work that you do. So we've got our website up and running, our email, or anybody can reach out to us and ask questions at SustainDelco, and you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So next slide. So one of the things that I would love to encourage everyone, we're in the process right now with our Sustainability Commission of figuring out our high-level goals. And one of the most important things about those goals, it's not just the climate action planning and thinking about, oh, we need to electrify our grid, but then actually putting a goal and a target to that so that you can measure your progress and go from there. So I'd like to encourage for any of your work in your EACs in your county is to actually look at the concept of SMART goals so that your goal has to be specific. It's clear and specific so your goals are easier to achieve. It's measurable so it can be tracked. If you just want to say, I just want to do outreach to people to put solar on their roofs. If that's your goal, okay, but then how are you going to measure that you're actually making progress to it? So a better goal might be, we want to install solar on 10 residential homes by the end of 2022. Then you can actually track and see what you're doing. You also have to make sure it's actionable. It's great to put really awesome, lofty goals out there, but if you can't tie them to a specific action that will then create measurable results, then you're not going to get very far, and it's going to seem like you're spinning your wheels. It also has to be realistic. So if I want to say Delaware County is going to be net zero emissions by 2025. Well, that's actually quite interesting because we haven't even finished our first greenhouse gas emission inventory, and then we're saying that we're going to be net zero in 4 years. So that's not quite very realistic, is it? So something more realistic might be, I'm not going to make my goal right now. We're going to shoot for net zero emissions, but we're going to set our goal to be realistic once we've actually done our first greenhouse gas emission inventory. And then time bound, actually putting a date on it and saying, I want to put solar on all of the residential homes in Delaware County. For one, that's probably not very realistic because it's a little bit too loosey-goosey of a goal because it doesn't define what a residential home is. It may not be actionable. It might be a little actionable. It certainly is measurable as long as you can figure out how to measure that. But I also didn't put a time on it. I didn't say, oh, by 2050, I want to have 80% of the residential single-family homes in Delaware County to have some type of solar, or access to community solar if they can't put something else on their roof. That might be a goal that's specific enough, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. So I wanted to introduce this concept if you hadn't seen it, and if you can take this and apply it to the work in your environmental action committees, I think it's going to help you make progress on what you're working on. Next slide. So here's another example. So one of the things that we're doing is figuring out our focus areas of what we want to do, and then actually starting to draft some goals. Right at the moment, we're working on our baselines. So a lot of these say X and by this date and that kind of thing, because that's where we are in the process. So one of our goals is to reduce energy use in county-owned and leased buildings where we have our operations. So our baseline we actually have to put that together. We need to assess our current energy usage, and one of the easiest things to do would be to use Energy Star Portfolio Manager. So once we've got our baseline, then we can say we want to do a 20% reduction by 2025, and then we want to get to a 30% reduction by 2030, and we can actually put time-bound restrictions on the goals so that we have something to measure and work towards. Then you start fleshing out your actions. And for us, it's doing a facility condition assessment, some ASHRAE level 2 energy audits, creating a 10-year plan so that we can implement the projects and address our deferred maintenance and so on and so forth. So this is a really good framework for you to use while you're doing your work in your EACs. Is let's look at the goal, how do we measure it, how do we put a target on it, and then create those actions that are very specifically going to change your baseline and help you reach that target. So these are good examples. So next slide. So this is another thing that we're kind of looking at the county level. The biggest cog in the wheel, and if you all think about this and you're working in your environmental action committees, is we've had to, because of the governmental structure and home rule and all of the rules that are in Pennsylvania, we've got to break it down by different levels of influence. So that's what we're trying to do in our sustainability plan, is looking at what do we control? What do we actually make the decisions on that we can then affect change? And for us, that's county operations. It's the energy use in the buildings. It's changing our vehicles over to electric fleet, you know, those kind of things. The next cog in the wheel is what can you influence? So for us at the county level, we do a lot of work with grant programs, or our planning department does a lot of help with the municipalities on their zoning ordinances, with model ordinances or things like that. So for us, work that's going on in municipalities, we don't have the right in the governmental structure to tell the municipalities what to do, but we could certainly put together programs and help to be able to influence what the municipalities do, but then in the end, it's their decision what they do. And then what do you educate on, or what should you inform? So it's also the same kind of thing that we can't tell the residents what necessarily to do, other than some basic legal laws and those kind of things. So we can't tell all of the single family homes in Delaware that you have to put solar on your roofs. That's not something that we can do. But what we can do is we can educate the families and the residents on how they could do that, and that if their home can't do solar, maybe they have access to other community solar, and maybe that's something that the county could do, is actually put together a community solar program, or work with the municipalities to be able to do grants in some way to be able to influence that type of program. So if in your EAC, you actually are taking a look at what's happening in your municipality and break down those different actions or goals that you want to do and figure out what your control level is, then you may be able to influence it in a different way, because you may not control things. You could only give suggestions or recommendations, but then maybe connecting them with other things, maybe at the county level or the state level, where we can help them do some more things. Next slide. So these are the action items that are currently going on in Delaware County, and you'll kind of see where we're doing some of this control, influence, educate kind of thing, and working on some of our goals. So we are currently finishing up facility condition assessments of all county-owned buildings and doing ASHRAE level 2 energy audits. We're getting those results in the next couple of weeks. We are participating in the DVRPC's regional power purchase agreement to look at how do we electrify our power purchases and make them more renewable. We are actually advertising for a consultant to update our solid waste management plan, because we have our 10-year update due in 2022. We are participating in DEP's local climate action plan program, where we actually have some help from ICLEI and a couple of university students to be able to work on our climate action planning, which is a subset of our sustainability plan. We are looking at the GIS and data that our planning department produces or has access to. So that ties into something that our folks were talking about in the previous presentation. So we're looking into that to see if we can add some equitable outcome type of data to the work that we do. And then we're working on an electric vehicle transition plan. We actually received a grant to transition at least 15 of our vehicles in our fleet over to electric vehicles. So on the municipal level, we just finished a round on our greenways grants where we are giving out grants to improve open space and some of the parks that are in the municipalities and nonprofits and townships and that kind of thing. We advertise or at least tell people about the regional streetlight procurement program. I don't know that much about that one, but I can certainly give you a link to be able to get to that information, but you can go to DVRPCs. We are also working on right now in our sustainability plan. We're actually at the point where we're kicking off a large amount of outreach. So if you, it's actually the second link from the bottom. So there's a SurveyMonkey link. We just opened a general public link for folks that live or work in Delaware County, where you can tell us about your sustainability attitudes and some of the things that you think about it. We also advertise the Solarized Delco plan, and we have a new commercial PACE program for funding for energy items. So we're kicking off literally in the last week or two, a whole bunch of outreach to residents, to municipal staff. We're going to host a couple of public meetings that I haven't gotten scheduled yet. I'm going to be reaching out to actually all of the EACs that are in Delaware County so I can have longer, bigger conversations with you than just talking at you through a presentation. So I'm really looking forward to that. Next slide. I think that's the last one. Yep. So if you have any questions, we can certainly answer them now, or Peter, we could go on to the next one and we can always wrap up later depending on our time.
Okay.
So you can always reach out to us at Sustain Delco and go to our website.
Thank you very much, Sharon. There was one question. What is Energy Star Portfolio Manager?
So that is a free online program that is run by the Environmental Protection Agency at the federal level that you can put in your energy data about your building, and it will give you an Energy Star score to tell you how you benchmark against other similar buildings in the country. So if you look at like K through 12 schools, there is a property type, an Energy Star Portfolio Manager, that once you put your information in, it will benchmark your K through 12 school against all the other K through 12 schools that have entered their information on the website. So if you just search EPA Energy Star Portfolio Manager, you can have lots of great information, but it's a national benchmarking program for energy use. Okay,
great. Thank you very much, Sharon. I know all of us in Delaware County are very excited about what's going on there. So before our next presenter, we are going to do another poll question. I did see John from Montgomery County is on. Did you want to go next in the planned order, John?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. All right. So after the poll question, Aurora will queue up your presentation. So what has your municipality done to date to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions? Select all that apply.
All right. I'm just gonna let it go just a couple more seconds. We have about 50% participating so far. Anyone want to wrap up their answer? All right, let's close it. We'll share those results.
That's pretty impressive that 27% of respondents have solar PV on municipal buildings. I think we can look at, I certainly would be interested in which municipalities, but I think we could maybe summarize from the survey based on the respondents who, I know Haverford Township is considering it right now.
All right, and I will queue up John's presentation now.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Sorry, my wife is traveling today, and I had 3 boys coming back from tennis practice, and now trying to figure out when food was going to be delivered, and I now have the boys' dinner sitting in the kitchen. So, but I'm the only one from our group who didn't have a municipal meeting, and I didn't want to miss this opportunity to speak to this group because the work that you're doing is immensely important. And I wanted to just get a little bit of FaceTime with all of you to give you an update on what we've been working on in Montgomery County and to make sure that you know that we are a resource for you in your work. So my PowerPoint was put together by myself and Brandon Ford, who is the Assistant Township Manager at Springfield Township, and he is one of the co-chairs of, in Montgomery County, we have what we call the Resiliency Partnership. It is municipal managers and staff who meet on not as regular a basis as I would like due to the pandemic, but we do meet on a regular basis to talk about and work through resiliency, sustainability, energy, climate change issues. And our first big project has been a local climate action plan, which we are calling Montco Climate Action 2050. And I'm going to give you a brief update on that and then some of the other things that we're working on. So the Resiliency Partnership is part of and an offshoot of the Montgomery County Consortium of Communities. We are partnering with them. We're MCPC. We got technical assistance from Bucknell, DVRPC, and ICLEI. And the technical assistance is being provided by the US DOE and DEP. Next slide, please. So what have we done? We got accepted into the climate action cohort. We used our regional greenhouse, our data collection was focused using regional greenhouse gas emission data from DVRPC. That is an extremely valuable product. It's something that is readily available on our website. If you're looking for municipal level greenhouse gas emission, that is the standard in our region. So we wanted to make sure that we were comparing apples to apples across the county and also, across the region. So in the spring and the summer, we did our emissions forecasting, which was really an interesting part of what the ICLEI tool was allowed us to do. We had kind of a snapshot from the emissions inventory from DVRPC, but ICLEI does allow you to do forecasting, and it's great for goal setting. We are currently moving into, and we're working on our emission reduction and climate mitigation and adaptation strategies. We do have a steering committee of public stakeholders, which are helping us with that process. And then we'll also have a public outreach process. We were able to get a year extension from DEP because we really wanted to take the time to be able to get this plan out and get input. The plan is going to be for the county as a whole. So we felt it was important that we got insight from the county and all of our stakeholders. And hopefully, spring and into the summer, we'll have the draft completed plan for people to look at and to hopefully embrace. Next slide, please. So as I was saying, this is just a snapshot of the DVRPC data. What is interesting, if you've never been on it, is you can, throughout the whole region, you can go on a municipal level and it will tell you the breakdown of your emissions per municipality, and allows you to compare to some of your neighbors. You can find out how your emissions compare to similar municipalities throughout the region. So there's nothing better than peer pressure when it comes to figuring out who's doing what and how to improve. Next slide, please. This gives you, just using the ICLEI tool, this does give us some emission data, a breakdown of where our emissions are coming from. Our commercial, the non-residential sector is the biggest, followed by transportation and residential. And then there are other emissions that are not called out on this slide. But once again, this is DVRPC data. It's tried and true, but it does give us a snapshot. And I know it says 2015, that is correct. DVRPC is coming out with a new inventory in the very near future. They're just going through the final review stages at this point. So we'll have some new data to look at, which will be welcome. Next slide, please. So like I said, the ICLEI tool allows you to do forecasting of where you can go and how you can meet your reduction goals. We, at this point, we have a 40% greenhouse gas emission reduction goal by 2030 and 100% reduction goal by 2050. We did want to match the Ready for 100 goals, since so many of our communities are striving towards that. So we felt it was appropriate to set aggressive goals and to look for that. So the plan has much more data, a lot more breakdowns of how this data, where we got it, how it looks, and where we go from here. So next slide, please. So that is one thing. That's kind of that's been our big project. I wanted to highlight some of the other things that Montgomery County is doing that would be of interest to EACs. I want to highlight our ordinance work. It's really important to work with your municipality and work through the ordinances. We do audits for a lot of our municipalities, the ones that ask us to, where you can go through your zoning and your SALDO and look to see where there are roadblocks to sustainability and where there are opportunities to include more sustainable language, and to think holistically about it. It's not just, a solar ordinance, it's stormwater, it's transportation-oriented development. There's so many ways in which we can start to tackle sustainability through the ordinances that we write and affect new development as it comes in. We've continuing to work with municipalities on renewable energy ordinances. Our work has gotten the whole county has gotten a Soul Smart Silver designation for the work that we've done. We have a collection of model ordinances on our county website. If you've never been on our website, I recommend taking a look. There's all sorts of model ordinances reflecting, not just solar, but other, any sort of other sustainable work that you might be interested in. So, and then DVRPC has the renewable energy frameworks, which is the model ordinance standard for our region. And I've just started working with Chester County, and we're going to work with our other county partners to create a utility scale solar guidance document, understanding that utility scale solar is an issue. And hopefully as the solar market improves, we get more and more developments coming in, and we want to be prepared for those. So, once again, we're working on some ordinance work. Next slide. We're still doing a lot of planning. My big thing for when I talk to municipalities and talk to EACs is that you can't talk about this enough. Sustainability, resiliency, climate change, interweave it into all of your plans. Reiterate the message over and over and over again in all the planning that you do. We talk about it in the Montco 2040, which is a county comprehensive plan. We've worked with 3 municipalities to author sustainability plans, and we're currently working with a 4th do municipal sustainability planning, to really set a vision and goals and implementation items. It's important. I wanted to make sure this group knows that we are currently working on our hazard mitigation plan. It's a federally required plan that all municipalities must adopt. And it does, when it comes to climate change and issues like that, we do call out flooding, we do call out heat, we do call out climate change, we call out a lot of the issues that are affected or that are effects of climate change. And we are updating our plan. It's a public process. There will be opportunities. There's actually a survey out right now if you search for it. And then we will soon unveil our climate change vulnerability assessment, which I'll talk about in 1 second. Next slide, please. We don't have any regulatory in the county, so we will rely on persuasive arguments. And once again, on our website, you can see sustainable green parking lot guiding documents like walkability, bikeability, renewable energy series, educating on renewable energy. Last year we started and we'll continue to do a Montgomery County EAC networking events, trying to get the EACs in Montgomery County to meet on a regular basis to talk about these issues and to find strength through each other. Next slide. So very quickly, this is probably our other big exciting thing. The Montgomery County Planning Commission is releasing a climate change potential vulnerability assessment. So basically, we're looking at the county. How is climate change going to affect the people, places, and things in our county? Where heat, flooding are going to be the two main exposures for our county. And we talk about the indicators of potential disadvantage, the populations that are most at risk for these. Next slide. So we do an independent flooding risk assessment, climate change flooding, heat, and then potential disadvantaged populations. We put that together and we have an index, a scoring for the county. So we can really start to highlight those parts of the county that are most vulnerable to climate change. Next slide. This is just a highlight of those areas that are that have a well above average. The way the tool works is it's all about an average. If you are above average, high above average, or below average. All this, I'm going through it quick. You don't need to study it yet because the tool is going to be out very soon. We're in the final stages of playing with the maps and making it all work as a web tool. Next slide. Because a lot of this is what we call a deeper dive. Each municipality can go in and look at all different sorts of factors, whether it's population, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's topography, that relate to, heat and flooding. And that way, at a municipal level, you can really start to look at, well, where should we be doing projects? What can we do about this? So the deeper dive is what's, it takes a lot of GIS finessing. And hopefully we will have it done. Our goal is by the end of the year, it will be out on our website and everybody can look at it. What is also nice for those who are interested in other counties, everything we used was free. We did not pay for a single piece of information. So this is something that can be replicated anywhere else. We'll be willing to share how we did it. And hopefully you take it, use it, improve it, and then tell us what you did to make it better so we can do it. Next slide. And that's it. Like I said, I just wanted to go through real quick, tell you about some of the things that we have going on. And as always, we are at Montgomery County, we are a resource to the EACs and to EACs throughout the whole region. Just because you were unlucky enough to be in Chester County or Delaware County, that doesn't mean we don't want to help you out.
Thank you, John. So I shared what I think is the model ordinance share site, and there was a question about which 3 municipalities did you complete sustainability plans for?
That would be Cheltenham, Collegeville, and Pottstown Borough.
Okay, great.
And then, I will say somebody asked about the recent tornado damage. That will get included in the hazard mitigation plan update. That is something that we'll talk about as part of that. Though it will be interesting, and I don't know if I can include it yet, but something along those lines, that storm type of data would probably be interesting to include in, our flooding, our weather, as part of the climate change vulnerability assessment. That's a very good point.
Okay,
See, I love doing these things. People tell me all sorts of stuff.
Thank you, John. Somebody made a comment about a few more municipalities are in the DEP LCAP and Montgo, and certainly, we just did ours through their program as well. So I think there's probably a lot of municipalities on board that have.
I know Abington is in the same planning cycle as we are, which I think is great. One of the biggest tenets of our county local climate action plan is that municipalities, we need to work cooperatively, but we also need to work independently and really focus on what we can change and how each municipality can you can never do too much planning to prepare.
Although you should also do doing, but yes.
Yes. As a planner, I do. I like plans, but I love doing. Because then I can point to people and be like, "Oh, I told them to do that, and they did it."
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
If there's no other questions, let's, before we move on to Tredyffrin's presentation, we have one more poll question, and then we'll be having a brief presentation from Tredyffrin on their energy transition planning. So this question is, what has your municipality done to encourage residential and business community to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions? Question in the spirit of the knowledge that really the municipalities really only represent a few percentage points of the greenhouse gas emissions in terms of their operations, I should say.
All right, I'm going to close the poll in just a few seconds. Looks like we have about 36%.
Very interesting results. I see one has actually instituted a rebate or a reduced permit fee system. Interested in whether anyone's actually done rebates. It's something that we've talked about, but it's a little bit of a hot button issue, I think, for any municipality to talk about collecting less revenue. But on the other hand, we're also going to be spending quite a bit more on mitigation and response. So, all right. Interesting poll. Our next presenter is Rutger Boerema from Tredyffrin EAC. Tredyffrin is one of those can-do EACs, and they've been doing a lot of things in a lot of different areas, including climate. So, Rutger?
All right, thank you, Peter. You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I've been asked to talk, I'm on the Tredyffrin Township's EAC, and I've been asked to talk about the takeaways of working on a comprehensive plan in a clean energy transition plan. Can you go to the next slide or the next two slides? Yeah, so if you go to the next slide. Yeah, so I was on the, I've been working on the Tredyffrin Townships comprehensive plan of 2021. It was adopted in June 2021. Comprehensive plan is a resolution, it's non-binding, and it envisions how the township should develop over the next 10 years. We've worked with the Chester County Planning Commission, and I think that was absolutely great. Go to the next slide. I've also been working on the Tredyffrin Townships energy transition plan. In September of 2019, the Board of Supervisors adopted the Clean Energy Resolution. There are goals in the Clean Energy Resolution, and so we figured that we wouldn't get there if we wouldn't have a plan. So in August of 2020, we joined 16 other townships to start writing a Clean Energy Transition Plan. It was under the leadership of Paula Klein and Henry Alexander, amongst others, from Sierra Club. We finished writing it, and it's currently under review. Next slide. So I will give you 6 takeaways from my experience. And the first takeaway is that I think one EAC member should be presented on the Comprehensive Planning Commission. You have to apply for it. I was thinking maybe we could take turns as EAC members, but that doesn't really work like that. I think it is important because it gives the township and the township employees and the supervisors guidance, and it's a very valuable document. It's being taken seriously. It's also good for the EAC because when you want to start new initiatives, you can point to the comprehensive plan, and that's what we did for writing the Clean Energy Transition Plan, but also when we started the rain garden projects, which we copy and pasted from Peter. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, so this is a picture from the comprehensive plan. So the picture on top, you can see there's a little bit of grass area there. There's not much life going on there. And the suggestion is to make it into a rain garden to deal with stormwater runoff and also to have some habitat for other critters. Can you go to the next slide? So as an EAC member, you can work on the chapter Natural Resources and Environment. That's the first chapter in the comprehensive plan. So every chapter has an overarching goal, underlying objectives. I'm not going to talk about this. You can read it in the comprehensive plan. You go to the next slide. And there are recommendations and actions. So one of the actions is ensure zoning requirements do not preclude the implementation of renewable energy systems throughout the township. So I think this is a very important one. We should take away all blockages with installing renewable energy. If you go to the next slide. And one of the other actions the township can take is implement ordinance provisions reducing electric vehicle charging stations in parking facilities. A lack of electric vehicle charging stations is really a blockage on getting more electric cars on the road. You go to the next slide. So besides working on that chapter in the comprehensive plan about natural resources, try to also integrate sustainability throughout the comprehensive plan. We tend to have sustainability here and then do the rest there, but sustainability should be all integrated in every aspect of our life, and try to to integrate it as much in other chapters as possible. So it's in chapter 2 and chapter 4. Go to the next slide. So that's chapter 5, community services and facilities. And there's a line enhanced township facilities and sustainability. So when we wrote the energy transition plan, we have a greenhouse gas emissions inventory of the township, and Steve Clark helped with that. And so now we have a top 3 of items where the township can work on to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, and also to lead by example, because I think that's very important for a township to do. You go to the next slide. So besides of integrating it in the text throughout the comprehensive plan, I think it should also come back in the renderings. So this is a picture, it's not from chapter 5, it's from chapter 7. But you can see here solar panels on the roof, you see a green roof, and you see an electric vehicle charging station. And obviously, I think there should be more solar panels on those roofs, but you know, I think this is a good way of showing what we mean with sustainability. If you go to the next slide. The third takeaway is to connect stormwater management and climate change. We've heard it also in previous presentations. Stormwater is currently is a big problem for Tredyffrin Township, but for most townships in this area. And we've connected that also in the comprehensive plan. If you go to the next slide. And then the fourth takeaway is get municipal employee involvement when you're writing a plan. In the comprehensive planning team, obviously there are township employees involved. But when we wrote the energy transition plan, Amanda Lafty from the township was also involved. She attended all the sessions, and that makes it really much easier to write a plan. She was a liaison between us and the township employees, and it also encourages buy-in from the township staff. Go to the next slide. And takeaway 5, use local knowledge. We are very lucky to have the DVRPC. We've used the greenhouse gas emissions inventory. We've compared the 2010 numbers with the 2015 numbers. And I'm really happy to hear that the 2020 numbers will be available very soon, because that shows you some trends and focus areas. We joined the streetlight procurement program in 2018, and that's finished. They have sample ordinances, and they have a lot of information about electric vehicles. Also, I would suggest to read other townships' plans. So we looked at Narberth, and we also looked at Radnor. Narberth is a very different plan from Radnor. Narberth was written by volunteers, and Radnor was done by a professional team. You just read through it and you pick and choose what you think is something would fit your township. Go to the next slide. And then the last takeaway is get community involvement. The EAC, the Tredyffrin Township's EAC, started an associate membership program last year. It's a 1-year membership, and members can work on special projects. We have high school students joining us. And that's a really good appeal, and to attract other people who want to become active for the EAC. Go to the next slide. We also need involvement from homeowner associations, and even though no township can regulate HOAs, they have their own bylaws. This is a paragraph in the comprehensive plan. And I think this can help us to reach out to HOAs and talk with them about how they can make changes to their HOAs. I think it's very important that people are able to charge at their homes, and that's not always possible. But those discussions need to happen, and having something like this in a comprehensive plan can really help. Go to the next slide. And then another way to increase stakeholder involvement is stakeholder interviews. For the comprehensive plan, the Chester County Planning Commission held 12 stakeholder interviews. We did 4 stakeholder interviews, which is not enough. We had 10 more. And I really would suggest to have more stakeholder interviews, because that is a way to connect back to people. After you finish the plan, you can talk about it. And for example, Mary Westerveld and Jennifer Cox reached out to the school board. They had a meeting, and then later they could connect our high school students with the school board with their plans. And they are going to talk about that next. On the next slide, I have some links. If you'd like to have some links, you can see the comprehensive plan and some other information. I didn't add my email address, so maybe Peter, you can add that to my slides later. Thank you.
Thank you, Rutger. If there's any questions, I didn't see any in the chat, but if you think of any while we're doing the poll, feel free to pose them. So let's launch into the next poll before we open up the floor to all the EACs. So our next poll question is obstacles. What are the greatest obstacles to getting your residential and business community to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions? One of the reasons why I asked that question is, you know, even a very active township like Haverford and Tredyffrin and some of the others that have made commitments, the easy lift, so to speak, is really the actual government operations. They understand that the issues, they understand the payback, and the harder lift, I think, for everyone is how to get the community to move.
All right, I'm going to end it. And there's our results.
Okay. All right, well, thanks for that input. And now we're going to open it up to EACs themselves.
Sorry, Peter, you forget the presentation from TE2 Renewables. The high school students would also have a presentation.
We didn't receive it.
Oh, they are here, so they are asking for it.
Do they have like slides to share, or are they just speaking?
Yeah, I would think they have slides, but sorry, can someone speak up? Clara?
Yeah, so we were supposed to be speaking with as part of Rutger's section with Tredyffrin. So we can like go back to the slide that was talking about the associate membership partnership. I think it was 2 slides ago. Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, we just have a couple of quick points to make.
So Clara and I are part of a group of high school students who are working to implement sustainability within our school district, which is the Tredyffrin Easttown School District. And over this past year, we've written a resolution, which Clara will go into a little bit more detail about.
So our resolution is calling for a switch to, first and foremost, renewable energy in the school district and setting goals for when to make those switches. And then it also includes other sustainability goals relating to construction, education, and community engagement within the school district. And through the EAC, we've really been able to make those connections with school board members. And Rutger mentioned a little bit earlier that they were the EAC members first put us in contact with the school board members through the work that they were doing with their clean energy project. So we've been able to work with the school board members and revise our resolution, and we are in the process of getting it passed, and we should hopefully do that next month.
So one thing that we found really helpful is that the Tredyffrin EAC offers associate membership. And through this associate membership, I myself am an associate member and also another one in our group. And we've met with the clean energy team in the Tredyffrin EAC regularly. And it's been really helpful for us. They've been really insightful and helped us mentor through this entire process. And it's also been great coordinating with the township level clean energy plans. Rutger mentioned earlier that the Tredyffrin Township is going through a clean energy plan and implementing that. So that's also been great. And then Rutger already shared in the slides, but we just wanted to also highlight that the Sierra Club Clean Energy Schools Toolkit has been really amazing and an awesome resource. At first, we didn't know where to start, but it really gave us a lot of tips and pointers. So if that's something you're interested in, you can always check that out.
Well, that's fantastic. If you can share a link to information about the resolution, I think there are probably many in tonight's meeting that would be interested in that. And I would encourage every EAC to consider having a student member, student liaison. I think it's a fantastic idea. I know Haverford has on and off had a high school student liaison or two. It really obviously depends on having committed individuals like you. So we certainly applaud your activities and your ability to get the school district to move on this. That's really impressive.
Thank you so much for giving us the chance to talk.
It's our pleasure. So yeah, and I apologize for not cueing you. I thought Rutger was going to do that. So anyway, all right, let's see. We did a poll. So basically now we're opening it to each EAC who's attending to talk a few minutes. I'd suggest about 5 minutes. Priorities. Highest priorities, greatest needs, information, help that you'd like, information you'd like to share verbally in the chat, providing links and information, and we can follow up and provide it to everyone after the meeting as well. So I guess alphabetical order, East Pikeland EAC, Linda Robarczyk.
Yes, hi, this is Linda Robarczyk. I'm a fairly new member of East Pikeland Township and Chester County. I've been with the EAC for about 1.5 years now. Dennis Ray, who's normally very involved in the regional activities with other EACs, couldn't make it tonight, so I'm just sitting in for him. Just a bit about my background. I worked for DEP for 27 years. In downtown Norristown, working in various programs, ending my career in public relations for the Southeast region. As I said, Dennis Ray has been very involved in many regional initiatives, including Ready for 100. He also recently had us at the Kimberton Fair. We staff informational tables and all there. We're working on and just completed an initiative to have tree ID signs put for the French Creek Trail, along the French Creek Trail, just to get some of our residents a little more in tune with nature and what they're seeing along their walks. We held a bird walk in the spring, and we're holding an owl prowl in the fall. So again, just some initiatives to get folks outdoors and know what they're looking at. I don't really have too much on what all the township's doing. I didn't even participate in the polls. Again, I'm fairly new to the township and didn't have a lot of knowledge on exactly what had happened previously, so I didn't want to take a guess, but so my presentation will be a little shorter. That's about it.
Thank you, Linda. Say hi to Jim for me.
Will do.
So next up is, by the way, I put in the chat information about the statewide EAC network, which is operated under contract by conserveland.org. It's not their actual name, but I can't remember their actual name. I think it's the Pennsylvania Conservancy. So they do an annual conference, and they are doing a special segment this year for new EACs and new EAC members. So consider joining. I think it's a $30 event for a virtual participant. So, all right, let's move to Easttown EAC, either Kate or Clara. I'm not sure who's speaking.
Hi, I don't know how to start my video. I'm Clara, I can speak. I'm the chair of the Easttown Township EAC. We are new this year. We were just created in January and had our first meeting in February. So we're probably some of the new kids on the block. But we've spent this year trying to do some outreach and education. We've started with getting Trek spins for plastic film pickup in our township administration building and library. We've done some workshops on composting and rain gardens and the impacts of single-use plastics on the environment. Right now, we are focused on surveying the business community on their use of single-use plastics to see what kind of framework they would need if we were to pursue a single-use plastic ban within the township. And we're also working on doing an update to our open space plan. We have a relatively new comprehensive plan, but our open space plan is from 1993. And we are trying to get the Parks and Rec Board and Planning Commission on board to do an update to that this year. And I guess if there's anyone out there who has done an update to their Parks and Rec or open space plan, I would love to hear from you. We are interested in finding firms that have done that for us, for other townships, so we can have some place to start when we go out looking for assistance with that. And I think that's all I've got.
Okay, great. I guess Haverford is next, and let me share my screen really quick. So this is just, you can read this, but we've done a recently updated climate plan through the DEP LCAP program. One of the things that I wanted to really push to Delaware County municipalities and EACs is Solarized Delco. So this is a group purchasing program, and we've done probably 20-25 installations over the last 3 years, but however, mostly in Haverford Township. And our EAC is supporting it by helping to get the word out. It's not actually run by the EAC, but several members are involved in it. It's actually under the auspices of a nonprofit called Tavis. So if you are interested in promoting solar in your community, please contact us. There's an email there. If you, we actually have, tabling kits available for tents, tables at public events. Now that we're having them again, yay. We're actually looking for new board members as well. So if you're interested and you're interested in getting involved, we could certainly use your help with both outreach and screening and so forth. We started a lawn sign campaign partly to help promote solarized Delco, but we also have other lawn signs that are available. We found in our rain garden program and now in the solarized program that good old-fashioned lawn signs are actually one of the most effective means of outreach, right? Because people are walking around in the community and they see a sign. That's how we get a lot of our rain garden referrals now and solar referrals. So these are available to anyone certainly in Delaware County. If you want to email us, if you want to publicize the fact that these signs are available, if you want to help distribute them in your community, that would be great. We've done a lot of workshops and taped them, other initiatives, the Clean Energy Co-op. I mean, a lot of these initiatives are really sort of by EAC members, but really outside of EAC, the Clean Energy Co-op, TerraCycle. There is a nonprofit in the community that wanted our help to create a climate action website. And then that's the information on the Clean Energy Co-op, the website. So the co-op is actually created a Southeastern PA branch, and they're looking for projects that they can fund. So the idea is that the co-op members actually fund the installation, perhaps for a nonprofit, maybe something like a fire company or a municipality. What that means is, they don't have to worry about putting up capital, but also that in the structure of it, they could take advantage of the tax credit and so make it less expensive for that nonprofit entity. So think about that in your community. Do you have, is your town interested? Is a fire company interested? Is a church or a temple interested? The other thing is one of the things about sharing and holding these events is it's a lot of work to be an EAC, and we tend to all reinvent the wheel. And so, we've actually done workshops. Most of them are on our YouTube channel. You can look through them, scan through them, see if you like them, use them, steal from them. We're happy to share any presentations, but it would be nice if we could all collaborate a lot more and work less and get more out of it. So anyway, that's my that's my take. This is sort of the short list of, gosh, we haven't planned. Does that mean we're behind the 8 ball? The actual fact is no. I mean, we really know most of the important, easy, high payback things to do right now. So some of these things townships have already done, should be doing, don't need, a huge effort to do a plan to conclude that this is what they should be doing. So, all right. I probably took too long. Sorry about that. So next up on the share is Lansdowne EAC.
Dana, are you still here? Hey, Dana.
Yes, I am still here, Dale. Do you want to lead off, Dale, and have me finish up?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm mostly concerned with community engagement right now. And we have had a survey of residents and got some of their interests documented and contacted them. We've also had a farmer's market every other weekend. So we have some names and we're trying to get some teams up and going related to zero waste, clean energy, gardening in public parks, things like that. And working in the educational part with the library, with children through the library, which we've been able to do. So it feels small, very small right now, but working, to build these teams up so they can be, so the people in community can realize what our Ready for 100 resolution means. Lansdowne did pass this about 2 years ago, and not much has been done to really implement it. So that's, where we're focusing right now. And then Dana is handling a lot of the clean energy issues with our borough manager. So, and we have a comprehensive plan that planning process that's coming up. So do you want to take it from there, Dana?
Sure. I think originally our borough manager was not contemplating including a climate action plan in the update of the comprehensive plan. But on the basis of what Dale and I were able to bring to the table from our Ready for 100 training from the Sierra Club, he agreed to include climate action planning in the comprehensive plan update. That's going to start next month, so I don't know how that's going to work out. It's certainly very helpful tonight to hear about the benefits of interleaving climate action with the more standard conventional kinds of land use planning that I think are going to dominate our comprehensive plan. And we have, as Dale said, been successful in connecting with volunteers. We haven't given them an official status. It's an interesting idea to think of EAC fellows. And we have some, a half a dozen very committed people, as well as another group that we've reached out to through stakeholder interviews. So we have some good community connections started, and I think those are going to continue to develop.
Great. I think with regard to EAC members, one thing that our assistant township manager told us many years ago is that in our charter, we have the ability to elect ad hoc members of EAC ourselves and not just rely on appointed members. So your charter may allow you to do the same thing. But we also have a lot of volunteers that we don't get to vote on things of much import besides minutes. So we're pretty welcoming in terms of involvement in the EAC. Okay, thank you, Lansdowne. Next up is Lower Gwynedd.
Hi, I'm Mark Schaefer, Chair of Lower Gwynedd EAC. I'm a research professor at Drexel University in the Biomed Department. And just want to touch on some things that are important to us. We try to do what we can for the local community outreach. We find the more times we're in front of our residents with information or giveaways, the more chance we have to have touch points and help educate them. So we do seminars regularly. We had one on home composting a little while back. We've got one on recycling. We just changed trash companies. So the new companies coming to talk about what they take and what they don't take. We do things like our budget funds a battery recycling container in our township building. So people can bring all their AA's, AAA's, C and D batteries. And then we pay to get that taken away. We give out branded spotted lanternfly swatters that say, Lower Gwynedd EAC, and the kids love it when we have community days and things like that. We're working on an Adopt a Highway program for some of the key streets. It turns out Route 309, the exits end up right in our township and they're just trash strewn. So we're starting a Adopt a Highway, but we're not going to do the work. We're going to entice local businesses to have their people do it, and then they get written up in our township newsletter. So that's the way we kind of bring people in and turn it around, make it a win-win for everybody. But some of the big things that are important to us are things our water. We're part of the WISIC and Clean Water Partnership. I don't know if you're aware of it, but the EPA came down and told the communities on the Wissahickon that they have to clean up the stream because it's severely impaired. So a consortium of 13 townships along the Wissahickon got together and formed this partnership to respond, and worked with Temple University and did some really great science. And now we've made a counter proposal to the EPA as to how to fix it. And mostly it's stormwater runoff. So our big push, of course, we've had lots of flooding on the Wissahickon and its tributaries in the last couple of years. We are now focusing our attention, how do we reduce stormwater runoff? I can speak for Ambler EAC. They had a big push on rain gardens. We had a rain barrel giveaway. And one of the things, again, just this week, we made a proposal to our board of supervisors to help raise awareness for people who don't realize how the streams are all over our township. We just put in a budget request to install put up signs at all the stream crossings for all our local roads. Because people don't realize in our township, there are 55 places where roads go over streams. They're all under culverts. Nobody knows they're there. But if we put up signs, so for instance, it will say, Willow Run flows to Wissahickon. So not only get the stream, but they also know where it goes. And we think that's kind of the first step in expanding the awareness of how important the streams and the creeks are, not only for pollution control, but for flooding as well. So those are just some of the things that we've been trying to work on. Oh, and the last thing, of course, we've got PFAS to worry about. It's 2 townships over in Horsham and Hatboro, but it's creeping our way. And one of the wells that feeds the water supply to Ambler has been contaminated. So Lower Gwynedd has paid to help Ambler put filters on their wells, and we monitor that and have an update to our residents about what the situation is. So those are some of our ideas. And again, I really want to push that idea that I think if you went through your townships and see where the stream crossings are and where they're buried, and you start putting up signs, people go, I had no idea. I didn't have any idea until I did the map with the GIS and saw all the places where we've got water all around us and we don't even know it. Thanks.
Okay, great. I know you mentioned Ambler, and they have a great rain garden program. It's been going on for years, which Haverford imitated, and we've had a rain garden program for 7 years. That's one thing, I guess, to consider as an EAC or as a township. I know the idea is spreading. Upper Darby started a program last year. I believe Newtown is dancing around it. I believe Tredyffrin is starting a rain garden program as well. So if anyone is interested in that, the Haverford Rain Garden Program does an annual workshop, which is going to be in March, and we can share it with everyone. And we also encourage people to apprentice if they want to learn the rain garden game. The best way to do it is to just roll up your sleeves and start doing it. So thank you for all the updates in Lower Gwynedd. Next up is Lower Merion. So I know there's a bunch of you on. I'm not sure who's speaking for you.
I think it's Beth, but I can't hear you if you're trying to speak.
Okay, Beth, you may be muted if you're trying to speak.
It looks like she's unmuted though. Maybe the microphone is having an issue.
Okay, while you're trying to figure that out, maybe someone else could jump right in. Sometimes it's which microphone your system assumes you want to use. I know I have that problem all the time. There is a there is a more button that I think.
I just heard something, Beth. It was very faint.
Okay, you know what? Let's wrap back around. All right. And you figure out, oh, let's see, now you're muted. Okay. If you figure it out, jump right in and let us know you're ready. Let's move on to Lorraine from Marcus Hook Trainer, Lower Chai, EAC. Okay, I'm not hearing Lorraine. Okay, I'm not sure if Lorraine is muted or not on. I'm just going to keep coming down the list, and if you are on and you figure out what to do, my notes on Adeline from Media EAC said did not want to speak, and I know we have a media borough person, but I would invite either of you if you want to say a few words to do so.
I don't think Addie is still on. I'm not seeing her name up there. And the person who was going to speak was our EAC chair, Walt Kressler, but he had a death in his family very recently, and he's not in town right now. So I just realized I was the only one from media on here, so I've been scrambling to put some notes together. I hope this isn't too rambling and disorganized, but I'll just run through a few of the things that EAC is either initiated or has devised on for the borough. Our most recent thing is that I'm going to say I'm not an EAC member, but I go to all the meetings, so I feel like, kind of possessive. So if I say just know I'm not a member. But so the most recent initiative is to send a draft resolution to Borough Council to ask them to consider a plastic bag ban in media. We'll see what happens with that. And then going backwards, we started a borough-wide curbside compost program last July. It was the result of a 3-year pilot program that worked out very well. And it's going very, very smoothly just because of the particular circumstances of how media operates. We were able to provide the service for very little to no additional cost, although I'll be running the numbers at the end of the year to see exactly what the state is. Another project was the EAC sent a resolution requesting that Borough Council look at it to ask Delaware County to end its contract with the Covanta incinerator in Chester and to initiate zero waste practices in the county. For stormwater, we've done some years ago, maybe 5 years ago, we got funding from Growing Greener to create a stormwater master plan for media that looked at both where locations for gray infrastructure improvements as well as green infrastructure projects could most effectively be done in the borough. So that's kind of a plan, in place for us to do various projects. As a result of that, working on an area of the borough that has major stormwater issues, putting in rain garden bump outs, a huge retention basin, and some tree pits. We have another similar project that's in design in the south part of town. We were able to get grant funding for both of those. We've done rain gardens around Borough Hall. We've done rain garden workshops for residents and rain barrel workshops. We're just about to complete an open space plan that was partially funded by the county, with just all kinds of suggestions for environmental improvements to the borough. We've put in a couple of new parks in the last few years, and they've had stormwater features to them, such as rain gardens. We've got one in the plans with permeable pavers and tree trenches. we've been working on solar on public buildings since 2004, and we have solar on 8 public buildings in the borough. And we got a bronze rating from SolSmart. We just completed a traffic calming plan. These are all plans that EAC advised on. And one of the recommendations was street murals. And we just with a collaboration with the Arts Council, organization, Transition Town Media's Open Streets, and our EAC and one of the Borough Council members, we put our first street mural on one of our intersections a few weeks ago. It features the trout of Delaware County, the 4 trout of Delaware County. So Open Streets is another EAC project that it collaborates with Transition Town Media we've been doing one each year, and it's a event where a wide area of streets are closed and residents are encouraged to get out and walk the streets, ride bikes, scooters, skateboarding, rollerblading, and then we have music, food trucks, and informational tables on various topics, environmental topics. And so that's been fun. Of course, we haven't done it for a while. Next year, we plan next year's Open Streets event will be we will have another street mural painting project during that event. So we've started a zero waste citizens group that collaborates with the EAC subcommittees, the zero waste subcommittee, a litter initiative, and another project we've worked on with Transition Town Media is the Solarize Greater Media project that went on a few years ago. We've done workshops for home energy conservation. We're advising our tree warden and public works on the issue of our street trees committee, the issue of sidewalks and street trees and how to keep the sidewalks safe without destroying the street trees whose roots are messing up the sidewalks. So that's a current thing. We've worked a lot on pedestrian accessibility. We've gotten grants to expand the sidewalk and connect the sidewalk network. They've advised on our comprehensive plan, our economic development plan, and our wayfinding plan. Worked a lot with recycling education in the borough. And I guess at some point we're going to be talking about issues we face and get advice from other groups. So this probably isn't the time to bring that up, right? So anyhow, I'm just going to end here. I've probably forgotten some things, but that's it.
Great, thank you. I think I could probably speak for all the EAC members on this meeting that we wish we had a township staff person like yourself that was so interested that you actually attended a meeting that you weren't required to attend.
Well,
how do we get somebody like you?
My connection with EAC helps me get grants because a lot of the grants out there that the borough's interested in are environmentally related grants. So I really need to be in conversation with the EAC all the time. And, it is personally, kind of a passion.
If anyone is really conversant with Zoom and could advise people in the chat, I could not find the, usually there's like a settings button somewhere on these systems that allows you to select your audio microphone. So if anyone knows how to do it on Zoom, if they would share it, that would be great. Let's move on to Nether Providence. I guess Paul Jacobs or Bill Silverstein. No.
Yes. Hi, this is Bill.
Hi, Bill.
With too much light behind me, but thank you. So one thing I wanted to start with, which Paul reminded me of, is that Another Providence is, I'm not sure what the correct term is, but I guess sponsoring two student projects in the Green Advisors Program from Swarthmore College, since we're right next to Swarthmore. For people who are in other parts of the county, they're our next door neighbor. So we have a couple of students in the Green Advisors Program, and I was glad to hear there's high school students on, but these are college students. And one of the questions that they actually asked is whether any other EACs are working with school districts on food waste composting or waste reduction. It's one of the things that we're looking to try to move forward with. We're inspired by media next door with their food waste composting, and we decided, or the idea was that the school district is a place where there's a lot of food in one place at one time, and maybe is a suitable target. So if anyone is working on that sort of thing, we'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, Another Providence is, I don't know, at least in my view, a fairly small township, about 15,000 residents, and a fairly small EAC that's been active for the last few years. So we have, and working with a, board of commissioners that is pretty much receptive to what we present to them. The question is, how much time do we have as volunteers to come up with good ideas and present them? It's not a battle to get things approved. It's more of, what are our priorities, and how do we use our time and get to things. So we do have a greenhouse gas resolution already for 100, but have not gotten very far in writing a plan. I mean, from a 2011 resolution, the township has replaced street lights, traffic lights, some energy improvements to the township building, although we'd like to add more solar, because what's there is kind of experimental and small and maybe not doing much. We also passed a zero waste resolution and are looking at exactly how to implement more steps in that, beyond just curbside recycling. That's where I mentioned we were looking at looking at composting. We've had discussions recently of whether to proceed with a plastic bag ban, and our thinking on that has been, right next to media. What everyone calls the media acme is actually in Nether Providence Township. So, from an EAC standpoint, we will probably recommend copying whatever Media Borough does, which I'm waiting to see next week. Thank you very much. And let me see what other notes I had here. We're looking at electric vehicle charging. We're kind of trying to find a suitable location. There's the township building itself is a little out of the way. The township doesn't own any electric vehicles itself yet. And we have very few businesses in town, although Acme is, as far as we know, is proceeding with a plan to install electric vehicle charging there, which is good. We separately have a Parks Commission and a Shade Tree Commission. So some of the, there are a couple of rain gardens. Some of those types of projects are not done by the EAC. Those are done by other, other groups in the township. And I think that was all the notes I had in front of me.
Thanks. Thanks for mentioning composting. I know a lot of people envy media's program, and we've talked a lot about it. I think the research that we've done is that if any other townships in the region want to do composting, the capacity at Linvilla is going to be exceeded. So this is a good subject. I know that John Butler was looking for input on recycling, and they're going through a planning process. But I think what's really needed is sort of a county-wide
Amen.
a county-wide facility that could accept more than one township's worth of composting. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on composting. All right. Thank you for the update and the input from Nether Providence. Janet, Janet Corvinus from Newtown Township.
I want to see if Lorene has her hand raised, that she can speak now. No, guess not. Okay, then I will go on. First of all, I want to thank you all for these ideas and for the presentations, because as Peter said, I'm glad that we can steal whatever we want from all of these ideas, and I've been stealing already from Haverford's Climate Action Plan and other resources as well. So in Newtown Square, one of the things you asked was, what is our highest priority and what is our greatest challenge? I think our greatest challenge is education, really, to know what to do, how to proceed. And our greatest priority this year is that the Township Board of Supervisors has passed a resolution to join Sustainable PA. We are just now in that process. There must be about 130 different components. It's been broken down into division by the Board of Supervisors, the Manager, Public Works, EAC, Parks and Recs, Newtown Square and Bloom. So all of us have a part to play in this Sustainable PA. And it was our feeling that the Board of Supervisors decided to go beyond just Ready for 100 and into Sustainable PA. It does give us kind of a framework of how we can proceed. But it is definitely a lot of work and a lot of commitment, I think, from all of us who are passionate about saving our environment and having a better community that we can live in. So some of the things that we have been working on have been some things that are on the ground level, and others have to do with how we maintain our township, not the supervisors, but the people who help. And that is that we have a new shade tree commission just this year. We have a brand new Trails and Greenways Commission, and we are working on a historical commission too, so that we can pull all of these things together. Many of our volunteer organizations work together to support each other. This year we've had started out in the spring, well, I'm going to say spring of 2020, when we had the Board of Supervisors pass a native plant resolution. And that has led to work with Valley Forge Audubon, who granted us funds to create a native plant pop-up demonstration garden, which we use to educate our residents on the importance of putting native plants into their yards. If any of you know Doug Talamay, he's the one who tells us that we should be converting, well, actually 2/3 of our yards away from grass, which doesn't help anything, and into native plants, which can help stormwater runoff, birds, and pollinators. So I'm going to jump down and say that one of the things we need to make sure we do is that our ordinances allow for people to put in like meadows in their front yard if they would like to support pollinators rather than having just green grass. Another thing we've done this is with Peter's help, rain garden planting. This a few weeks ago, we put in 2 rain gardens at our administration building. We had so many people come out and help plant over 1,000, I think it was, little plugs that went into that garden in 2 different locations. Just this past week, we had in our Gable Park, which lost a lot of its trees due to derecho. We have native plants and shrubs that are going to help stormwater management and biodiversity, as well as habitat restoration. That was funded by PICO Green Region and Philadelphia Horticultural Society, Tree Vitalize grant funding. We had 30 people came in and to dig holes and plant trees. And we're going to put in that same area a permanent pollinator perennial garden. So it's along a walkway and people will be able to stop. And like I do, I don't look just at the flowers now. I look to see who's on the flowers. Is it a bee or a bumblebee? And let's see what else we have done. We also are concerned about stormwater runoff at a construction site that's going on that kind of stripped off an entire hillside. And through a letter writing to the DCCD, that's the Delaware County Conservation District. We got the inspectors out to look at it and have proper oversight for erosion and sediment control. This coming November 1st, Noel Smith, I think he might still be on this Zoom meeting, is going to be talking to our EAC about solarized Delco. So we're moving forward on that. And one of the ways we hope to be able to get out the message is through not only signs, but also we have a new farmers market that happened this past year. A great way for community people to come out, get familiar with what's going on. Each week, that was on Fridays, there's a community table that was either manned by or womaned by the EAC or the Historical Society, or even the township supervisors came out to man it at one point. Let's see if there's anything else that I wanted to remember. We've also talked about having an associate membership for a student at our EAC. I was happy to hear that that's something that is working in Tredyffrin Township. So it's a good thing. It would be a good thing to move forward on. I think Joe Pinto is on this meeting. I see him there. He was the one who initiated that idea. Great idea. So we're also looking into charging stations that will allow people who don't have driveways and garages to be able to charge if they have to do it from the street. I personally have started composting with Mother Compost, and I've inquired about information and was sent some really good information from them. So we'll see how that can move forward. I have a rain barrel in my driveway that's ready to go for when we start talking about our residents doing stormwater management. And let me see. I think that's about all I can mention at this point.
Okay, thank you, Janet. So next up we have, unless somebody's figured out how to get their microphone to work, we have the Phoenixville Green Team. David, are you on? Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Hi, David.
Hi. Yes. So Phoenixville's in a funny situation. We do not have an EAC. The Green Team is a completely independent nonprofit organization, but we have, together with Transition of Phoenixville, stood up a group of volunteers we're calling Re-Plastic for Reduce, Reuse, Recycle. And we are introducing to the Borough Council the sustainable storefronts that Westchester had started a few years ago, and beginning to reach out to local businesses, starting with restaurants, of which we have many, to look at signing them up for sustainable storefronts and instituting greener practices in the business. There's also a school board hullabaloo, let's call it, about a property that the school district no longer needs and is looking to sell. There are bids from developers, and there's one bid from the borough, which is about for half the amount of money. The community has been in a bit of an uproar, and we are trying, again, the Green Team and Transition together to work with the community and to reach out to the borough and to try to help keep that land in public hands. It's right on the bank of the Schuylkill River, actually. So it's a high value for the public to keep as open space and maybe eventually a trail. So there's quite a few things going on in the borough. I do want to mention our strange situation that the borough has was actually the first in the Commonwealth to pass Ready for 100 renewable energy, has not done annual reports, but has made many great inroads. There's good resources on the staff. They've gotten many grants, they've done the lights, they've done many great things. And I do want to point out SOMAX is the name of a project, SOMAX. If you Google it in YouTube, you may see our council president with a rather stoned face talking about the project. It's the first in North America. It's a European technology to turn biosolids from wastewater treatment plants into biochar fuel, or also it can be used as an additive in concrete. So it will be a revenue generator, will hopefully eventually generate power to run the wastewater treatment plant. It's a fantastic project. It's going to be going live pretty soon. It's been going on for 2 or 3 years, and first quarter of next year should be online, eliminating the need to truck all of the biosolids to Lanchester landfill. So it's a great green project. This is all things that are going on without an EAC. We have a tree advisory commission. We have a beautification advisory commission. I'm struggling with the idea is, do we actually need an EAC? And I've decided just to participate in these kind of summits and regional EAC meetings, just because we're involved in these kind of things, but have no governmental authority whatsoever.
Well, neither do we, so don't feel bad. We're all advisory, and I think people fall on both sides of the issue. A lot of the things that get accomplished by EAC members actually get accomplished outside of quote unquote official duties. I think if you have a good relationship with your elected officials as a group here, that's probably the most important thing, I think, for any EAC or any outside group. That's my 2 cents. Appreciate your input. It's getting late, so let's give Springfield Montco, Joy Berge. You are up if you're available.
I am. Thank you, Peter. I'm going to go real quick here because it's late, as Peter said. Our priority, I think, for our EAC, our top priority is our energy transition. We have branded ourselves as Renewable Springfield. So it's basically the Ready for 100, but we're using that branding. We are working first and foremost within municipal operations on energy efficiency. And we're including, other EAC priorities that we're working on, parks and trails, promoting those. We have an upcoming planning day of natives in a community park. And that ties into bikeability and walkability, which are also critical in our energy transition plan. Peter, I was going to mention this anyway, you just said it, how important it is to have really good relationships with both municipal staff and elected officials. We are so lucky in Springfield. We have fabulous support of our municipal staff, our township staff, and unanimous support from our commissioners. This doesn't come easy. I spend a lot of time meeting with both staff and commissioners, just cup of coffee in the park or over Zoom, just to educate them. Everybody's so busy. Everybody has a million priorities. And I think we have to remember that, but it really pays off because it's so much better when everybody's swimming in the same direction. So I'll end it there. Thanks.
Okay, great. I want to backtrack to Radnor Township. I didn't see, I must have skipped over it in the chat. If someone is available from Radnor.
Yes. Hi. Yeah, I didn't put it in the chat. I put it on my name, and Radnor Township. So I guess I should have put it in the chat. Yeah. So I'm the chair of the EAC and in Radnor, and we are doing a few things. The energy part of it is taken over more or less by the green team, which is not part of the EAC, but we have a green team member who is a member of our EAC as like a liaison. And they were able to get together the practical energy solutions proposal, which was great. They're, unlike some of the others, we're not having a whole lot of township buy-in. We were more or less said to find the low-hanging fruit, i.e. that which doesn't cost anything to focus on, but they are working on the solarized Delco right now. So that's an initiative that they're working on. As far as the rest of the EAC, earlier this year, we put together a zero waste management resolution sparked by the whole Covanta situation. And we put that forth, and we wanted to have township endorsement, but they voted it down. However, I don't think it was a lost cause because it is now on their radar screen, and the township manager actually contacted me about some meetings and so forth that were going on about zero waste management and Covanta. So that maybe had some success to it. We did have an informational table at the Radnor Fall Festival where we were able to have educational pieces. We had a little raffle to get people to sign up. So we now have a list for a newsletter, a list of people. We're finding it hard to communicate with the residents as we don't have any type of direct communication. So this seemed to help. We are working on redoing the plastic bag ordinance. It's not a ban, but an ordinance. And one of the things I'm most hopeful for is we submitted a proposal for hiring a sustainability manager in Radnor Township. A lot could be accomplished if we had one person with whom we could work. And so we put together the whole job description. We borrowed this and it's going to be supposedly voted on October 27th. So we'll see if that actually happens. And yes, so I think those are some of our initiatives. It took us, we were down members, so we couldn't even have meetings some months because of the fact that we didn't have a quorum. And so now we've gotten 2 new members, and this is a big accomplishment as well.
That's good.
So that's about it.
Okay, if you wouldn't mind sharing your job description for the sustainability position.
Oh, absolutely. It's very comprehensive.
That would be great. Actually, our brand new climate action plan is calling for that. And that was probably the biggest topic of discussion before the plan was approved by the board.
Okay. Okay, we'll do that.
All right, let's move on. I don't know, is John McKinstry from Swarthmore available?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Hi.
Hello, I'm fairly new to the EAC in Swarthmore, but I can give a very brief summary of some of the things we've been doing. With regard to climate and energy, we've just put up a second set of solar panels on the borough building, And we're investigating getting an electric car for the police. And we do have electric car charging in the town. And then Swarthmore College has a lot of car chargers, so that makes it pretty easy for people with electric cars. We're also investigating internal carbon pricing for some of the institutions. The college is doing that. And so we're looking at how they do that as a way of sort of imposing an internal carbon tax to make you think about that. We're also preparing guidelines for what individuals can do as far as reducing carbon footprint. We've established an energy transition task force, and 3 of the members of the EAC are on that transition task force. Another thing that we've done has to do with in the area of native plants. We do have a tree committee that's been around for decades to make sure we have a full canopy. And so we're thinking about maybe doing something similar to that for native plants. We've had eco audits this last year, so people can have those who are expert to come onto their yards and say, okay, here's what you might need to do to make your yard more sustainable. And that was pretty popular, and we're going to do it again next year. We're also going to be having a book club with Doug Ptolemy's latest book. And we're going to do a review of the most recent book. And then with the library and some of our other organizations are going to be doing a book club, and then have Doug Ptolemy give a talk in March. Hopefully that'll be late enough in the winter that people can plan about what they can do with their yards. We also did like Media and Other Providence and others. We also were advocating for about the Cavanta plant and trying to get a zero waste initiative, and we had support from Borough Council. Those are some of the things that we're doing in Swarthmore. Thanks.
Okay, great. Let's see. I'm going to jump over Tredyffrin because we heard a lot about them. Let's jump to Upper Darby, Norm James, and then maybe loop back to Tredyffrin and West Vincent and then anyone else who hasn't had a chance to speak. Is Norm on? Okay, I guess not. Donna Delaney from West Vincent.
Delaney. Hey there. Well, we're doing a lot. We have a sustainability committee, and we also have an EAC. We have members from both that are on our clean energy transition team, and we did the Ready for 100 resolution. We have solar panels on our township building. We've done an energy audit. We got an electric car charger in our parking lot. Audubon Society did a study for our township called Return on Environment, and it was funded by the William Penn Foundation because of work they're doing here in Delaware watershed. And we worked to get a presentation done by the consultant who did the report, and it identifies many areas we could improve. Greenway spaces, areas to preserve, all kinds of information in that document. It needs to be taken into account by all the committees, and it really should be taken into account in most decisions. And we didn't get that point across. So next year, our township manager said we need to identify how we would use that in our township decision-making and hire a consultant to help us integrate that. This weekend, we're starting a pollinator pod project. Over the summer, we gathered a garden club, people who agreed to take care of pollinator pods. The pod idea we stole from Upper Dublin, and the idea is that pollinators move and you can't have one garden, everybody has to have one. So we're starting with a lasagna garden demonstration on Saturday, and we're hoping to grow native plants all winter. We have a garden design with the Girl Scouts. I'm trying to get the elementary school to be a big part of that, and then provide all interested residents with the native plants that we're starting the garden with next year, and then continually do that year after year. And we'll be taking videos and showing people how to manage their garden, get rid of lawn, take care of it, make sure it looks pretty. We also started a nature club to take care of the natural places owned by our township and take care of tree plantings. And I don't know what else.
Okay, great. Appreciate the update from West Vincent. I don't know if Tredyffrin wants to say something on a subject other than energy transition. Jump in right now, and then we're going to open it up. It is closing in on 9 o'clock, and I understand the hour is late, but we're certainly willing to chat with anyone who hasn't had an opportunity to speak and would like to. So Tredyffrin, anyone want to chime in on other subjects?
Sure, yeah, I was going to briefly mention two things. We've had really fantastic success with the Trex recycling program that we have launched. That has been wildly well received by our community. Trex, T-R-E-X, as in the Trex decking. The single-use plastics, there's not really a good location for that, and recycling bags in stores, it doesn't necessarily expand in people's minds that they can put other kinds of plastic film in those containers as well. And we have reached a lot of the community in that, and we've already received one free bench from Trex. We're almost to our second one, and that has been really great. And we're thinking about reaching out to our high school volunteer environmental group community and see if they also want to use that as a way of driving, like collecting plastic film, because that's a really easy thing that they can fit into their schedules and just drive it to collection sites. I also wanted to mention, we had a really one of our most successfully attended events was in January for a MLK Day of Service. And we realized that there aren't a lot of hyper local things in our area anyway, that families can go out. So we did a park cleanup that had like 60 people show up, and we didn't really promote it very much. And people are already asking and looking to that. So you might want to look at your own communities and look close by, because the Day of Service has become something that people are very familiar with. And our community was really excited to have something that was so local and in their community. And the last thing that I just wanted to say is we did launch our rain garden program. We put an educational rain garden in at our one of our public libraries near a native pollinator garden and rain barrel demo garden. They're kind of in the same plot, and we are hoping that was our educational rain garden. We have that going in, and we're going to launch the actual residential program next spring.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Tredyffrin is, I think, one of the active ones around the region. So I know Tredyffrin has a phenomenal stormwater ordinance as well, which I think Haverford is going to try to emulate. I know, although I think the Delaware County is also going to do an updated model stormwater ordinance due to all the movement in the climate and the basis for stormwater. So, all right. Let's see, I guess let's open it up, and if anyone else wants to jump in, and if someone starts speaking and you want to be next, raise your hand, I guess. While we're waiting, I'll continue to prattle on. I did want to mention that we've talked about solarized Delco. For those of you in Montgomery and Chester County, Bucks, there is a solarized Greater Westchester now, and a solarized Southeastern Pennsylvania, and a solarized Montco, I believe. So if you search for that, you'll find websites that really any of the EACs outside of Delaware County could become active in those organizations. Suzanne raised her hand. Go for it.
Yes. I don't know if you can hear me, or I hope you can hear me.
Yes, yes, yes.
Great. So I'm a new affiliate member or associate member with the Tredyffrin EAC, and I'm a member of the Tredyffrin Green Team. And we have just started a new initiative in cooperation with the Upper Merion EAC that we call SAGE, Southeastern PA Alliance of Green Enterprises. And it is modeled on Westchester's Green Storefront. And somebody else, I think it was Phoenixville Green Team, is also interested in an initiative like that. The mission of SAGE is to involve and support local businesses in becoming more sustainable, such as green interior and exterior building infrastructure, eliminating non-compostable disposable packaging and plastic utensils, to promote and educate clean energy options for power equipment and transportation, and to be involved in community events that promote sustainable practices. So in short, we are trying to address all these different sustainable practices for the small business community. We believe that there's an interest in the small business community, but that many of them, they need a framework, they need some handholding, they need some information and education. And we are trying to reach out to every one of them and bring them together. And we will have a tiered SAGE seal, something that will eventually be a decal going on business storefronts. And so to award the different businesses. And there obviously the different businesses have different aspects to that. And so we are working all of those details out to make it really specific to businesses. We are really looking towards other EACs, if any other EACs are interested in something similar, if they would be able to endorse us on their own township newsletters or websites or other social media. And I have put our email address in the chat box. So it would be great, if, like to hear from people if they're interested and if we can expand our program from beyond Tredyffrin and Upper Merion. The more the merrier, I would say. And yes, it's an initiative that has been started by Kristen McCann, who is also very active in TE, but she couldn't be here today. So I'm sitting in to introduce this program.
Could you put a link and email address and make sure it goes to everyone in the chat? I did not see that.
Okay.
But thank you
I thought
very
I
much.
did, but I will.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think we're starting to lose people, and it's no wonder. It's after 9 o'clock. But everyone who participated, I want to thank you, and hopefully this was worthwhile. And we will follow up with some additional resources, and I would encourage everyone who is just starting out with an EAC to keep at it and track down the resources that you're going to get. And I will invite, again, anyone who hasn't spoken, wants to speak, speak now. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you once again. And we look forward to getting any follow-up comments and resources and links that you want to share from you. One of the things that we'd love to do is expand our database of EAC members. So if you would share a full list of EAC members, we'd be happy to directly invite them to the future events. Apologize for those of you that had audio problems. Not sure how or why that happened, but thanks again. Aurora, I don't know if you want to say anything else. Aurora has been extremely helpful, and thank you to Aurora and DCVA for helping to host this meeting.
Yep, no problem. Happy to be here. And I loved hearing from everybody. And just a reminder for everyone else is still hanging on here. If you have anything you want me to send out to the rest of the group, I'm going to be sharing the presentations and contact information and links that I do have already, but if you have anything else to send, just blast out to the group. You know, you can send it to my email address and I'll be happy to share it. So have a great night, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.